Welcome to the We Are VIP podcast. Each week, your host, Casey Hasten, Director of Recruiting at VIP, will bring you valuable insights from thought leaders, introduce you to incredible companies, and bring you tips for landing your dream job from our team of executive recruiters at VIP. And now, Casey Hasten.
Welcome to the We Are VIP podcast, a podcast devoted to adding value to your career and candidate search, brought to you by VIP. I'm your host, Casey Hasten. I'm an executive recruiter, director of recruiting with VIP, and your all-around hiring guru. And today, I hope you're ready because I have brought a bundle of energy into here, our studio, as a guest today. So let me tell you a little bit about him. He was going to go yeehaw. I'm still waiting for that.
Yeehaw!
I think this is going to be a fun show, I'm pretty sure. So today I want to introduce George Hendley, founder and president of the Speakers Academy, a company that helps business leaders build skills and find courage to become confident and competent as speakers. He is the recipient of numerous National Speakers Association and International Coach Federation awards, which I will soon be a part of. I'm so excited. And shares his experience with his clients and with the world through his writing and speaking. Today he joins us to discuss his tips for leaders to help them communicate confidently and clearly with those they lead. I'm so pumped about you being in the studio today.
Well, thank you, Casey. I am pumped too. Sort of like Arnold, pump you up.
There you go. So you and I met through a mutual friend.
Correct.
I always like to kind of make those connections because I
Sure.
want people to learn to look for those
Sure.
connections. Sean McBride,
That's
who's
right.
introduced me to a lot of wonderful people. And originally I met you because I was on your podcast.
That is correct.
And that was a lot of fun. I think I left that podcast with the biggest head because of you guys. I mean, y'all were just like so complimentary because your podcast was Influencers of Tomorrow.
That's right.
And you guys were just so good. And I watched so many other episodes with your guests and you just...
Thank you.
And I think that really leads into the topic today about building confidence.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I think so. I want to just dive right in because after many years of speaking and taking on speaking roles yourself, you're certainly an expert on speaking. You're very confident. I can tell that. I know that. I've had many conversations with you. But has it always been that way for you, or was there a time you were afraid to speak publicly?
Well, can I go way back and really kind of...
Like 100 years?
Well, not quite that far. a good ways back, though.
Okay. Yes, you may.
I was the middle of 5 kids. I had 2 older
Okay.
sisters, 1 younger sister. And those 3 girls, especially the 2 older, really picked on me for one primary reason. Because as a child, I stuttered. I couldn't.
Really?
That's correct. I could not get words out. I had problems with pronunciation, and it really was a stumbling block for me in light of being able to communicate, especially and having any confidence in doing it. But God bless my wonderful mother. She was so patient and kind and understanding. She really coached me, if you will, through the growth process and helped me learn how to slowly but surely slow down and speak succinctly and get my words out in such a way that I could be understood. And through the years and a lot of practice with a lot of great teachers and coaches of my own, I think I've improved a little bit.
Maybe just a lot. So that blows my mind because I've heard you speak today, and I never would have known that's where it started for you.
Yeah. And I just think so many people have different kinds of backgrounds that have given them fear. And definitely, I had plenty of that in the early days. I remember my high school speech class and Mrs. Clemens and the things that I went through in that class, overcoming some of my early fears to stand in front of my classmates and be able to deliver something that resembled a speech at that point in time. So I've, again, taken a lot of things on my own that have helped me build and develop experience and wisdom and a little courage and confidence along the way.
That's amazing. Do you have to still work at that, or do you feel like you've completely eliminated that stutter?
I am so glad you brought that up because I oftentimes tell people confidence is like a muscle. And if you're not exercising a muscle, what happens. You know, as an athlete of sorts, if you're not exercising muscles, they shrink. They don't have not just the volume, they don't have the elasticity, they don't have the quality of being able to perform when it's time to perform. And confidence is exactly the same way. I've just talked to a young man recently. He said, I really had a lot of confidence at one point, but it's like it's gone. And I said, I can completely understand. Simply, again, because either we're using it or we're losing it. And we have to constantly be aware of what we're doing today to build skill and confidence in all of these arenas.
That's amazing. What do you think you do to practice confidence on a daily basis?
Well, I interact with great people like you.
Oh, stop. Tell me more.
But, I do a variety of things. In 1991, I was going through a really rough period in my life, and I had sort of transitioned out of what I thought was going to be a lifetime career. Everything just imploded. My world just went to heck in a handbasket, and I was really in a bad place, and I really became depressed. And I went through some counseling sessions, but I picked up a great book by a guy by the name of Shad Helmstetter. Shad Helmstetter helped me understand the power of affirmations. And I literally did exactly what he suggested, which was build my own cassette affirmation tape. And I put this together out of the back of his book, and I listened to that thing. I still have it, by the way. And
do you have a cassette player?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I do. I do. As a matter of fact, I have the Sony Walkman that I still use.
That's amazing.
I know, it's amazing. The old architect from the point of view of technology. But I listened to that thing every single time. If I was in my vehicle going someplace and nobody was with me, pops in the tape, listen and listen and listen, and let those words really saturate my mind. Because we become what we think about.
Yep.
And if we're thinking negative things, if we're confessing quietly, subconsciously negative things, we will become negative, fearful, doubtful, hesitant, you name it. So it's build it up or lose it.
Yeah, we talk a lot about mindset on this podcast because to me, that's the first tool that you need to have.
Absolutely.
It controls everything else.
It does.
So I think that's so important. So what do you think, in your experience, what are 3 traits of an excellent speaker?
Well, I use a variety of different formulas, if you will, little things that help me remember as well as share those with other people. One of those little formulas is what I call the SAY formula, as in say, SAY.
Okay.
S stands for subject, A stands for audience, Y stands for yourself. Know your subject, know your audience, know yourself. If people really have a good grasp of their subject material, if they're really aware of and in tune with their audience, and this may seem like not so significant, but it's actually number one. If they really know themselves in light of their strengths as well as their areas of challenge, if they really know themselves and they're looking for ways to leverage their strengths and then downplay or overcome those areas of weakness, they will become the best you or the best them that they can be. So know your subject, know your audience, know yourself. And I know you're going to get into some things about the interview process, and I love that because I interview people all the time, and I am being interviewed. I'm being interviewed as a speaking coach, and people are checking. That's right. People are checking me out to see, do I want to work with this guy? So I'm going through the interview process on a regular basis.
On both sides?
On both sides.
That's
absolutely.
Awesome.
On both sides.
That's
I understand
awesome.
it.
So before we get to that, let's talk a little bit. You wrote an article on your website, because you're an avid blogger, called Confidence, How Do You Build It? That stated, as your knowledge and skills grow, your confidence begins to climb. And I think this is very important for any speaker to understand. And let's talk about how this applies to our audience or our candidates that are on the job search. What kind of advice can you give them?
Well, they have to really see themselves in that job. Whenever I'm going in front of an audience, especially if it's a place that I've never been before, like we came into here, into the studio, I didn't literally sit in the chair, but I walked in, I got a grasp, a feel for what the place looked like. I want to, in a sense, see what the place is like that I'm going to be in, so I can feel comfortable in that. And the same thing goes true with my audience. I will go up on a stage or a platform or just in front of a group of chairs and really look out into an empty room and imagine in my mind all of those chairs being filled with people and seeing them smiling at me, seeing them clapping, seeing them embracing the things that I say. So I do a lot of visualization.
Okay.
And that is, for me, very, very powerful, because if I see it in my mind before, then it's easy for me to see it in my mind in reality, and I start feeling good in advance.
Gotcha. That's a good advice for them. And especially, one of the things that I really coach my candidates when they are going for an interview with our clients is about not just confidence, but not going in there with a chip on your shoulder.
Oh, absolutely.
And not going in there desperate for the job.
Absolutely.
You need to go in there and not cocky, but you're interviewing the company just as much as they're interviewing you.
No, that is the case. And every job, every company, as you well know, is not right for every candidate.
Exactly.
And they have to have that in their mind. And when I'm being interviewed for the potential of going in and speak to a group, I just went through the first interview with one guy earlier this week. And it's a group in Houston, and he's really checking out potential speakers that would come in and speak to his association group. I was beginning to get a feel for him, but also the group as a whole. And in doing that, I was beginning to see, is this a group that I can really do well with?
Gotcha.
And I mean, honestly, through my years and years of speaking, there have been a few groups I should have never stepped in front of to begin with.
But did you know that? Did you have a gut feeling beforehand?
Once or twice, yes, and I tended to sort of suppress it. Bad mistake. And so I've tried to be a lot more careful since those things have happened, because I don't want to go in and fail. I want to go in and succeed. I want to make sure that when I'm done, people go, okay, wow, that was really helpful. And I want to have the feeling that that is what they're feeling at that moment in time.
Gotcha. And just to kind of relate this back to recruiting, I'm very fortunate, as is the rest of my team, in that just like not every candidate is good for every client, not every recruiter is good for every candidate or every client. And so I think it's so important that we recognize that, and when we know that we're not going to be the right fit for someone, that we're not going to be able to give them our best because something's not clicking.
That's right.
We need to be willing to pass them to another recruiter. And I do that, I'm not going to say all the time, but there have been times that I've done that simply because at the end of the day, I want what's best for the candidate. And
Correct.
if I'm not what's best, I need to get them to the person that is going to be what's best.
Correct.
Same with the client. For some reason or another, there may be a reason you don't click. So pass them on.
That's it. May I share a story with you?
Yeah, please.
I had a client several years ago, and he and I had been working together for over a year, and we had a really great relationship, so much so that he trusted me to turn over someone that he really felt that I would be able to work with as a client of mine. But I went through an interview process with this person, and within, the first 15, 20 minutes of our conversation, I could just tell it was not going to be a true clicking win-win for both of us. And after about 35, 40 minutes, I just said to her, I said, I am flattered that you're considering me to coach you, but I don't think I'm going to be the right person to do that. And there was this pause. It was on the phone, and she said, oh, okay, well, thank you. And I went, well, thank you for your time and consideration. And when I went back to my current client, he was just baffled that I would turn away this potential work. And I just said to him, look, to me, I could sense and see it was not going to be a good fit, and I would not have felt right taking her money and trying to help her when I knew in advance, no click, no work.
Gotcha.
Don't want to do.
Gotcha. Yeah, that says a lot about you too, though, because not everybody would act that way. So thank you for being that,
Sure.
having that integrity. So, all right. So going back to, you were talking a little bit about getting prepared for your speech, so by visualizing the room and the audience and everything like that. What else goes into preparing for a speech, especially how do you get yourself into the right mindset to step in front of a crowd? What's the largest crowd you've been in front of?
probably a little over 1,000.
Okay, that's big.
That's pretty good size.
Significant.
Yeah. So there are a variety of things that I do. Again, I really make sure that I'm in tune with the subject material that I'm going to be handling, but especially the audience. Because if I don't know the audience well, and I learned something that has helped me immensely through the years. I had a large, really rich pharmaceutical company based out of New Jersey that I worked with for a while. And
Were you a sales rep? Or
no.
coaching them?
I was in a coaching
Oh, okay.
facility.
I was like, I did not know this about you.
Yeah, and one of the things I recognized, I just needed to really immerse myself in their culture.
Okay.
I needed to understand exactly what these people were thinking, what they were doing, what they were challenged by. So I asked my contact, I said, can you give me the names of 5 or 6 people who will be in the group that I'll be speaking to that I could interview in advance of the presentation? And they said, sure. So they sent an email, and we kind of back email. And then I went through a series of, I think, 5 or 6 interviews with these people just to really ask them questions. Took a lot of notes to get an idea of what were their true challenges, what were the things that they were doing or not doing,
right,
and really understand who they were from a company culture as well as an individual. And the more I did that, Casey, I just felt like I was like almost one of them. And it gave me an identification factor because I started to feel like I know this company. And a couple of people came up and said, how did you know that about us? I said, well, I ask questions and listen.
There you
go.
go.
It is. And it's the same process. Someone going on an interview, they need to do as much advanced research as possible. And I just can't
say that again. Say that
again. Okay. I mean, there's so many avenues of research that you can go into today that weren't so easily available years ago. With the internet the way it is, you can interview, you can dig in, you can research, and you can find little gold nuggets, and you can pull those things in. And when you're in front of the client for that interview, you can say, I know your company's been going through some great growth, and that's one of the reasons I'm glad to be a part of this opportunity, because I am a forward-thinking person. I want to add what I know into the growth experience of this company.
Yeah, that's gold right there, because and that's one of the things that, again, as I prep candidates, and I'm not giving them all the answers, I'm giving them tools that they can use going forward, but I'm like, do research on the company. I send them the LinkedIn profiles for the hiring managers, and I'm like, go Google them. Google is your friend right now. See what you can find on them. And there's another little trick I'm going to share that when you Google, so I can't remember what the first tab says, but the second tab says news. Google them and click on the news and see if they've been in the news.
There you go.
That will impress them.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I went through, not an interview per se, but just to get to know you with a lady that I looked towards collaborating with. And I went on her LinkedIn profile, and I saw graduated, magna cum laude. And in the conversation we had later on, I said, so you're smart as a whip, aren't you? And she just looked at me. I said, magna, huh? And she just grinned and was like, okay.
Somebody finally noticed.
That's right. And just that little thing showed a stronger connection between us, and any kind of hesitancy of being open was gone at that point.
Absolutely. And again, it goes back to that, finding that click,
yes.
right? And I'm going to share a story that's really off topic, but I think it does kind of relate to what you just said. I like to go off topic. But I was assigned a new client the other day, or one of our business development managers brought him in, and I had just been emailing with them up to this point. I'm like, this is stupid. I'm going to call them. And because I need that personal connection, so
That's
I
right.
know what kind of, personality is going to do well there. And so I just pick up the phone. I call them. They actually answered, which shocked me because usually it's a message. But the lady that I was talking to, she was like, I was just responding to your email. Like, give me a minute. And I was like, oh, I'm not even calling about that. I just wanted to call and introduce myself, get to know you a little bit better, blah, blah, blah. We were on the phone for an hour.
Wow.
Yeah. Turns out I know her husband. I was like, yeah, it was such a weird connection. But, it was just that little twist right there
Yes.
of changing it, making it personal rather than all
Yes.
business, totally changed the relationship. And now I'm a trusted partner.
There you go. And in today's world, our tendency, and I think this is especially true because I do have a couple of millennial daughters, that people tend to be very thumb friendly rather than voice friendly. And there are things that a voice can capture via the wonderful things we call ears on the side of our head that thumbs and emojis don't do.
Exactly.
And just like you and I having this face-to-face conversation right now, having a face-to-face, there's nothing like it because you can watch someone's face and you can tell, are they really getting you?
Or are they annoyed?
Or are they kind of just going, oh, where's my time going right now? I wish I could.
I can't get this back.
Yeah, that kind of, and that is so critical in making the connection.
Yeah. So you wrote a recent article, another one on LinkedIn, and I want to kind of get to this because I think this is important. You are the message. What are they hearing from your visual presentation about the importance of dressing for the occasion? I just had this happen today. And in our world, what does a candidate's attire communicate about them?
Everything.
Okay.
Everything. Now, again, when I first started my business, George Hendley Presentations, 27, almost 28 years ago.
That's insane.
That's a while back.
That's older than me.
Oh!
That was not
you
true.
little baby. Things were very different in the world of business from a dress and attire perspective. And so things have really changed, I think, especially over the last 10 to 12, 15 years. I didn't go out in public almost ever without at least a sport coat and a shirt, dress shirt on, but most of the time a tie too. I've got this big collection of ties wasting away in my closet.
But you're bringing back the pocket square. I like
there
that.
There you go. See, that's sort of shows my age, I guess you might say.
Oh no, it's very popular right now.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm cool again.
You're cool.
But all of those things, people unconsciously look at you and they judge you.
Yep.
They do.
They do.
They just do. And it goes back to who we are as people from a fear perspective, a flight or fight perspective, and people judge from 30, 40, 50 yards or meters away. They look at you and they judge you.
And they've already probably decided whether or not they're going to hire you. They don't know it.
Yes, and unfortunately, yes.
Yes.
And so they look at you and go, will she or he really fit into our culture? Will they be a part of the team and not stand out like a sore thumb? Will they blend and be someone who will be a real asset to the team? Or are they going to be someone that the team is going to look at and going, who is this person?
A distraction.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So attire and grooming is critical. And I just think today people can get a little bit too relaxed in their attire, and it can cause them problems down the road.
I think so too. One of the first questions that I ask candidates when I'm prepping them, what are you wearing tomorrow? Have you picked it out yet?
Good one.
And if they tell me flip-flops and jeans, I'm like, no, try again. But I learned that the hard way because I actually had a candidate show up in jeans and flip-flops one time. Granted, it was a Friday, and she was like, well, I thought everybody had casual Friday. And I'm like, and she didn't get the job.
Oh.
And that was why.
Oh.
And so now I don't want anyone else that I'm sending on an interview not to have that piece of information.
Yes.
And I don't care if the company is casual, you dress above that. It's business casual. I don't care.
Yes. My rule of thumb very simply is this: at or slightly above the level of your audience.
Yes.
At or slightly above. If you walk in and all of a sudden you recognize, oh, okay, I'm overdressed, I can take this coat off, I can even roll up my sleeves, I can do a number of things that says I'm dressing down to be more close to your place. I don't want to seem like I'm aloof, that I'm walking in with a tuxedo on, but at the same time I don't want to walk in and feel, oh, crud.
Right. Maybe I should have worn the tuxedo.
I'm underdressed.
Black tie.
Bad decision at that
Right.
point.
So here's an interesting question. Let's flip it around. What does the interviewer's attire say about them to the candidate?
A lot. It says a lot because, again, it shows the candidate what he or she is potentially walking into. And that, again, is a value statement. And sometimes someone will recognize these people aren't my people. And just because they see the interviewer is, for whatever reason, not dressed in such a way that they show that they like themselves, or that they show an attitude of competence, or that they show an attitude of I want to look my best on the job all the time.
Right.
So it goes both ways. It always goes both ways. And the interviewer then has to say, hey, I want that person to know this is how we look in the company. And if it was a casual Friday and they say, by the way, I'm wearing jeans today, but this is not our casual, or this is not our norm.
Right.
So that kind of thing. So they set the tone and temperature for the company by how the interviewer dresses.
I love it. I love it. I want to talk about something else, and let's talk about how important, as you're giving speeches or as you're doing, or even just in a conversation, how important is eye contact, and how does that help to build trust?
Okay. It's very nice to be able to have someone as pleasant looking as you are to look at.
Thanks.
But bottom line, what we want to make sure we're doing is, I use the word connection rather than contact.
Okay.
Because I can contact and look away. I can contact and look away. I don't want to contact and look away. I want to really make a connection. The audience that I spoke to just day before yesterday, I told them, I said, look, when you're standing in front of a group of people, find what I call the happy eyes.
Ah,
Find the happy eyes.
I like that.
Find the happy eyes and connect and hold for 4 to 6 seconds. And then find another set of happy eyes and connect and hold for 4 to 6 seconds. And move around the audience. All eyes will not want to connect with you.
Right.
And you don't want to try to force that.
Right.
But if you can find 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people in a larger audience that are willing and ready to really connect with you, then you can go back over and over again, and they will feel like, wow.
He likes me.
Yeah, he's talking directly to me.
Exactly.
That's a positive thing.
I love it.
Yeah, and just like, wow, okay. Now, I'm not looking at your eyes right now. I'm looking at the top of your head. Can you tell the difference?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not looking at your eyes right now. I'm looking where?
My mouth.
Absolutely. So I'm telling people to look directly in the eyes, not the top of the head, not the mouth, really to make that eye connection. Because as the philosophers say, the eyes are the windows of the soul.
Yep. I love that eye connection. Totally stealing that from you.
Good.
But I want to talk about it from a different direction
Good.
too.
Okay.
Because I worked with a person that I don't know if he'd been told that you're supposed to always just stare, but it was like this non-breaking stare, no matter.
And that's
I know
not good
people
either.
can't, not everybody can see me, but I'm just like, I finally had to say, would you stop? I can't stop.
Yeah.
No more connection.
Yeah. So and so it has to be a comfortable thing.
Yes.
When you're looking at someone and you see them constantly look away, then it's probably you've pressed the too long
Too
button.
far, yeah.
And you've taken it too far. So usually 4 to 6 seconds, then another set of eyes. And if it's only one
like that.
person, then perhaps you just do a quick glance away. I'm looking over at the plants now. I'm back looking at your microphone now, looking at your eyes again. But bottom line, I don't want to make that person feel like I'm trying to drill holes.
And that's
through
what
their
I felt.
eyes.
It was so uncomfortable.
And that's not good.
Yeah. So what is your secret to keeping the audience engaged for the whole time?
Well, there are a lot of different things. Do you remember the formula AIDA, A-I-D-A?
No.
Okay, here's again, one of my little formulas. This one's not mine. This one's been out and about for a long time. This is actually in the sales arena. AIDA stands for attention, interest, desire, action. Attention, interest, desire, action. And if you'll remember that when you stand in front of a person or a group of people, that you first have to grab their attention. I was giving some critique to a lady who called me earlier today and said, hey, you heard me speak the other day. What about this and what about that? And so I gave her that little simple formula, but it comes back to making sure that you're quickly grabbing the person's attention or audience's attention. One of the greatest ways to do that is with a startling statement, a question, or in my opinion, probably the best, a story.
Ooh, I love to tell stories.
And stories are so memorable and unfortunately either not used or not used well.
Gotcha.
And if you can build stories into your presentation, then people go, oh, I remember the story you told me about.
Yep.
And telling stories into and through most of your presentation will make your presentation really stick out because those stories will have a memory peg, if you will, to stick on it. And in doing that, people go, Well, she told this story, this story, this story, and this story. And it was interesting to see how she transitioned and linked them all together. They were different, but she made an incredible linking system between each story. So holding people's attention comes back to the content, and the content, if it's well thought through, can have a lot of really salient points, but simple stories that are memorable.
Are you familiar with StoryBrand, Donald Miller?
Oh, sure. I listen to him every morning. Every morning. Don's my man.
So I have a lady that went through his certified training with him there, and she's going to come on the podcast to talk about how important it is to tell that story and why we do it. And I cannot wait. I think it's going to be amazing.
Oh, yes.
And really that relates directly to sales because she uses it to put her proposals together. And I'd asked her, because it's not cheap, I said, is it worth it? And she goes, I've already made back 4 times what I paid.
Wow.
And it had only been like 3 months.
That's a great testimonial right there. Holy mackerel.
I know. So I'm really excited about her coming on the show as well.
You should be.
One final question before we get to the VIP questions.
Sure.
What are your thoughts on PowerPoint presentations while you're speaking?
Not.
That's the general consensus I get from speakers. They're like, no.
No, you are the visual. And again, earlier this week, I saw this young lady, and she tried to do a PowerPoint, and the technology didn't work. Number one, she had a tiny screen.
Yep.
It was not easily seen by everybody in the room. Number two, her computer or something jammed up, and so she could not get the whole thing to work properly. And I've seen that so many times, and I just go, oh, please, ditch the technology. Some of the greatest speakers of all time didn't have PowerPoint, and they learned how, with their words, with their gestures, with their stories, to captivate the audience, to hold them, in the palm of their hand, and to be able to put across the message to inform, inspire, influence, or entertain. And people go, I won't forget that.
I think Zig Ziglar is the one that comes to mind the most, and he talked about how many times he went over his material. So always like hours and hours and hours and hours, so that when he got up there, he was just talking to you. He knew everything by heart, by heart. And so, and if you go back and listen, the speeches aren't that different. If he's doing a "see you at the top," I mean, he knows it that well.
Sure.
So,
well, it's that he reached that place of what is known as an unconscious competent.
Yep.
And that just takes years of day in and day out discipline, going back to building your confidence, building your skills, and repetitiously not just getting strong, but staying strong over a period of time. It's one thing to win the Super Bowl. It's another thing to come back and win it a second time, then a third time.
Right.
Etc.
Come on, Cowboys.
The 90s were such a great time, weren't
The only
they?
time I watched football was when they were winning.
Yeah.
So how do people find you? How do they get in touch with you if they need to up their speaking skills?
Well, I'm all over the place out there. Let's see, post office walls. No, I can be found on the World Wide Web at www.thespeakersacademy.com. I'm out on LinkedIn. I'm in Facebook. I'm a variety of places.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I love hearing from people that have questions and thoughts and comments, because I get better as I'm questioned or people throw things my way, and it causes me to think and really sometimes reconsider positions that I've held in the past.
Well, I love all your knowledge and the fact that you're so willing to share it and to point people in the right directions and to even either coach them or find a coach for them. So I really appreciate that about you.
Thank you.
Are you ready for my VIP questions?
I hope so. Oops. Here we go. Lightning round.
I tried to do the Jeopardy theme song one day, but it did not come out like a Jeopardy theme song, so I'm not doing that again. If you were chosen to be one of the first colonists on Mars, what 3 things or people would you take with you?
I would take my Bible, I would take my wife, and I'd take the smartest scientist I could find who knows how to exist and do well on the planet of Mars.
There you go. I got an Elon Musk one time. That's pretty smart.
There you go.
That was quick. Okay. What's one thing you do every morning to set your day up for success?
Reading, journaling, and some quiet time in prayer. Those things really repetitiously, and sometimes it's only a few minutes of one or the other, but I really try to get myself in a centered place, in a place that I'm ready to take on whatever the day brings.
I love that. That's very similar to my routine.
There you go.
Must work.
I was going to say, success meets success. Boom.
All right, my final question. If your life's work was being summarized in a news article, what would the headline be?
Is the news article an obituary, or is it just something that they're talking about me while I'm still alive?
You decide.
Wow. He lived to glorify God.
Enough said. Drop that mic. George, thank you so much for coming on and just talking to me today.
My pleasure.
I love it when I can hold people down and make them talk to me for at least 30 minutes. So this has been a lot of fun.
Good,
And I just have one last thing to say to you.
Sure.
You ready?
Yeah.
You are a VIP.
Oh, I love it. Hey, for all the fans out there, there it is, VIP. Very important presentation skills.
There you go.
Boom.
And that's a wrap for today. Join us next week here on the We Are VIP podcast. We'd love to know how we can help you be a VIP. To find out more, log on to wearevip.com.